now we come to our final story, a tale of solitude and terror, and it has a moral too. It hints at the dangers of intellectual pride and shows how a man's reason can be overthrown when he fails to acknowledge those forces inside himself which he simply cannot understand.
So I suppose you'll be getting away pretty soon now the term's over, Professor?
Indeed. My friends have been making me take up golf. I mean to go up to the east coast, in point of fact to Felixstowe, for a week or so to improve my game.
Well, while you're there, maybe you can take a look at the site of the Templars' old church. Let me know if it'd be a suitable place for you to dig in the summer.
Phillips was, I'm afraid to say, an archaeologist, and furthermore, a jovial one.
Ruined churches aren't exactly my line, Phillips. I study science, not history, and especially not ecclesiastical history. But if you were to describe to me whereabouts of the site, I will do my best to give you an idea of the lie of the land.
Well, that's kind of you. I doubt there'll be much left above ground now, but it should be pretty close to the beach. From looking at the map, I should say it's about 3/4 of a mile from the old Globe Inn, at the northern end of town. Where are you staying, old man?
At the Globe Inn, as a matter of fact. I couldn't get in anywhere else. All the lodging houses seem to be shut for the winter. As it is, they say, the only room of any size I can have is really a twin-bedded one. And I must have a fairly large room, for I'm taking some books down. I mean to do a bit of work while I'm down there. I don't quite fancy the idea of having an empty bed, not to speak of two, in what I may call my study, but I suppose I can manage to rough it for the short time I'm up there.
You call having 2 beds of roughing it, do you? I'll tell you what, I'll come down and occupy one of them for a few days. It'll be company for you.
The professor quivered, but managed to reply in a manner that could almost be described as courteous.
By all means, Phillips, there's nothing I'd like better, but I'm afraid you find it rather dull. You don't play golf, do you?
No, I certainly do not.
Well, as I say, when I'm not writing, I shall most likely be out on the links, which, as I say, will be rather dull for you.
Oh no, come if you don't want it to. I just thought it'd be good to keep the ghosts off. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I know you don't appreciate levity on such topics.
As you mentioned the matter, I freely admit I do not like careless talk about what you call ghosts. A man in my position cannot be too careful about sanctioning the current beliefs in such subjects. As you know, Phillips, or as you ought to know, for I believe I've never concealed my views, that any semblance, any appearance of a concession that such things might exist would be equivalent of a renunciation of everything that I hold sacred. Now, good night, Phillips.
As you can see, Professor Parkins was something of an old woman, rather hen-like in his ways, and totally destitute of a sense of humour. But at the same time, dauntless and sincere in his convictions, and a man deserving of the greatest respect. On the following day, he arrived at Felixstowe. He was made welcome at the Globe Inn, was safely installed in the large 2-bedded room, and was able, before retiring, to arrange his materials for work in apple pie order. Professor Parkins, whose principal characteristic was pluck, spent the greater part of the next day in what he called improving his game, in the company of a fellow guest of the Globe, a rather capricious gentleman called Vanells. Now, whether the process of improvement was to blame, I cannot say, but Vanell's demeanour began to assume a colouring of lurid proportions, and even Parkins jibed at the thought of walking home with him from the links.
My dear Vanells, I thought I might walk home along the beach tonight, if it's all the same to you.
As you wish.
I thought I might take a look at those ruins my archaeological friend was talking of. I'm not exactly sure where they are, but I expect I'll stumble across them.
This he accomplished, I may say, in the most literal sense. For in picking his way from the links to the shingle beach, his foot caught on a gorse root and over he went. When he got up, he found himself in a patch of broken ground, covered with flints embedded in mortar, and grown over with turf. He concluded that he must be on the very site of the old church he had promised to look at. He remembered vaguely that the Templars, with whom this site was belonged, were in the habit of building round churches, and he thought a particular series of mounds near him did appear to be arranged in something of a circular form. Few people can resist the temptation to try a little amateur research in a department quite outside their own. if only for the satisfaction of showing how successful they would have been if only they had taken it up seriously. And Parkins was no exception. So he paced with care the circular area he had noticed and wrote down its rough dimensions in his pocketbook. Then he proceeded to examine an oblong shape in the sand, which seemed to be the base of a platform or altar. He took out his knife and began scraping away the earth. And now followed another little discovery. A portion of soil fell inward as he scraped, disclosing a small cavity. He lit a match and showed it. It was a rectangular hole, with all the sides smooth and regular, and it was not empty. As he withdrew the knife, he heard a metallic clink, and when he introduced his hand, it met with a cylindrical object. Naturally enough, he picked it up, and when he brought it into the swiftly fading light, he could see that it was a metal tube about 4 inches long, and evidently of some considerable age. By this time it was too late and too dark for him to think of undertaking any further search. A faint yellow light in the west showed the links, on which a few figures moving towards the clubhouse were still visible. The squat Martello Tower, the lights of Felixstowe, and the pale ribbon of sand, intersected with intervals by the black wooden groins, the dim and murmuring sea. He set off with the glow with a suddenly rising wind at his back. As he trudged across the sand, he looked back to measure the distance he had made from the ruined church. In the distance, he saw some indistinct shape of a man who seemed to be making great efforts to catch up with him. There was an appearance of running about him, but strangely, the distance between him and Parkins did not seem to lessen.
I'm not adverse to a little company on this lonely shore, but I most certainly don't know the fellow. Certainly not Vinnell's. It'll be absurd to wait here till he catches up with me. He seems to be making no headway whatsoever.
When Parkins met Vinnell's at dinner, peace, or as much of it as that gentleman could manage, reigned once more. Nor was it put to flight in the hours of bridge that followed. For Parkins was a more than respectable player. When, therefore, he retired towards 12 o'clock, he felt that he had spent his evening in quite a satisfactory way, and that even for so long as a fortnight or 3 weeks, life at the Globe may indeed prove rather salubrious. Especially, he thought, if I go on improving my game.
Enter.
Beg pardon, sir, but as I was brushing your coat just now, something fell out of the pocket. I put it on your table, sir, in your room, sir. A piece of pipe or something of that kind. Thank you, sir. You'll find it on your table. Yes, sir. Good night, sir.
The speech served to remind Parkins of his little discovery that afternoon. The object was of bronze, he now saw, and was shaped very much like a whistle. Well, in fact, it was actually no more nor less than a whistle. He put it to his lips, but it was quite full of a fine, caked-up sand, which would not yield to knocking, but must be loosened with a knife. Tidy as ever, Parkins cleared out the earth into a piece of paper, and took the latter to the window to empty it out. The night was clear and bright, and he stopped for a moment to look out to sea. He also noted a lonely figure standing quite still on the shore in front of the inn.
What late hours these inhabitants of Felixstowe keep. Surely there are markings on this. Are they letters? Yeah. Quis est iste qui venit. Well, I should be able to make it out, but I am a little rusty in my Latin, but it seems simple enough. It ought to mean, who is it who is approaching? Well, evidently, the best way to find out is to whistle for him.
He blew tentatively stopped suddenly, startled and yet pleased at the note he had produced. It had a quality of infinite distance in it, and soft as it was, he somehow felt it must be audible for miles around. It was a sound, too, that seemed to have the power of forming pictures in the brain. He saw quite clearly for a moment a vision of a wide, dark expanse of night, with a fresh wind blowing, and in the midst a lonely figure running towards him.
Oh, goodness, what a terrible gale.
The window had blown open in the sudden wind, and Parker struggled to close it, but he felt almost as if he were pushing against a sturdy burglar, so strong was the pressure. Then it slackened all at once, and the window banged to and latched itself. He looked around to see what damage had been done, but nothing seemed amiss. But the wind did not fall at once. On it went, moaning and rushing past the house, at times racing to a cry so desolate as Parkins muttered to himself.
Frightful noise might make imaginative people quite uncomfortable. As it is, even the unimaginative might be happier without it.
But whether it was the wind or the excitement of golf, or the finding the ruins of the church, Parkins could not sleep. He shut his eyes tightly, but as soon as he had done so, strange, unearthly images came to him unbidden, and he had to open his eyes to disperse them. They were not of his taste, and sooner or later he had to try again, and once more the images framed themselves afresh in his mind. He saw a long stretch of shore, indistinguishable from the beach he had just walked upon. The sky was dark and lowering. He felt the electric tendrils of a storm gathering beyond the horizon. He turned. Behind him in the distance, a bobbing white object appeared. A moment more, and it was a figure running, clambering over the groins towards him.
What is this? This thing that's following me? Where can I hide?
Growing larger, the shape declared itself as a figure in pale, fluttering draperies, ill-defined. There was something about its motion that made Parkins very unwilling to see it at close quarters. It moved towards him at a speed that was slow but inexorable. The moment came when the pursuer was hovering only a few yards behind the groin where Parkins lay in hiding. Then it suddenly rose up and darted straight towards him. It was at this point that Parkins always failed in his resolution to keep his eyes shut.
Enter.
Excuse me, sir, but would you like an extra blanket for your bed?
Yes, I think I should like one. It does seem to have turned rather cold.
Well, which bed should I put it on, sir?
What? Why this one? One I slept in last night.
Well, if you'll excuse me, sir, you seem to have tried both of them. Leastways, we had to make them both up this morning.
Really? How very absurd. I certainly never touched the other one, except to lay some things on it. Did someone seem to have been sleeping in it?
Oh, yes, sir, where all the things was crumpled and thrown about always, as if someone had passed a very poor night.
Really? Well, I have disturbed it more than I thought when I unpacked my things. I'm very sorry to have given you the extra trouble.
Thank you, sir. No trouble at all, I'm sure.
And so Parker set forth with a stern determination to improve his game. The inn was not more than 60 yards from the beach, and very soon Parker found himself on the golf links adjacent to the cold expanse of the North Sea, where Vanel's was waiting for him, like an underfed greyhound preying on a hare.
Stronger wind we had last night. Did you hear it? In my hometown, but it said someone was whistling for it.
Should you indeed?
Aye. They believe it all over Denmark and Norway, as well as on the Yorkshire coast, even here in East Anglia. And in my opinion, there's always something in what these country folks say. No matter how peculiar.
I ought to warn you that my own opinions on such matters are very strong indeed. I am a convinced disbeliever in what is called the supernatural.
You mean to say you don't believe in ghosts or second sight or anything of that sort?
In nothing whatsoever of that sort.
Then, sir, it seems to me you are nothing more than a Sadducee.
In my opinion, the Sadducees were the most sensible people in the Bible. Now, as to whistling for the wind, let me give you my theory about that. A man or a woman of eccentric habit, or a stranger, is seen wandering on the beach at an unusual hour and is heard whistling. Now, soon afterwards, a violent wind arises. Well, any man who could read the sky or was in possession of a barometer could have foretold that, but these simple people of the fishing village have no barometers, and just a few rough rules for prophesying the weather. So, what more natural than that this eccentric personage is reckoned to have raised the wind? Now, take last night's wind, for instance. I, myself, actually whistling. I blew a whistle, and the wind seemed to come absolutely in answer to my call. Now, if anyone had heard...
So you blew a whistle then? What did you use to whistle with it?
Oh, it's a very curious one, actually. I have it here in my... No, I seem to have left it at home. As a matter of fact, I found it on the ruins beach, the ruins on the beach.
And Parkins told Vanells all about his discovery, to which Vanells grunted and said that he should be careful about using a thing that had belonged to a set of papists, of whom, speaking generally, you never knew what they might have been up to.
What's the matter? What have you been up to, madam?
I've seen something, sir.
Seen something?
Yes, sir. A figure waving.
Waving? Well, who did you see waving?
It was from your window, sir.
Window? And which window was that?
It was the front window at the hotel, sir. I was sitting out on the grass in front of the globe, taking some time off, as you might say, practicing my yardling.
A quaint seaside hobby, nothing more.
When I happened to look up at the window, and there it was, waving at me. A figure of some sort, in white as far as I could tell, and it was a-waving at me. And it wasn't a right thing. No, it wasn't a right thing at all.
Which was the window? Was it the top one or the second one?
It was the second one, the big one at the front.
Seems to me as if someone's trying to give you a start. If it happens again, you just throw a stone at them. No, don't do that. You go and see Mr. Andrews, the proprietor. Tell him that I sent you. There, now, here's a sixpence. Oh, I see it's a shilling. Now you take that and don't you worry any more about it.
Curious. It's actually my window the housekeeper's talking about. Would you come up with me for a moment, Jeff? Nothing seems to have been disturbed.
Except your bed.
That's not my bed. I don't use that one. Well, it does seem as though someone's been playing tricks with it.
Whatever for?
Well, I may have disturbed it more than I thought when I packed my things. And, well, maybe the maid coming to make it up, and that's who the housekeeper saw at the window. Yes, that must be it. Now, did I show you that whistle I was talking of?
No.
Here it is. Now, can you make anything of the inscription?
Not in this light. What do you mean to do with it?
Well, when I get back to Cambridge, I'll show it to Phillips, and quite likely, if he thinks it's of any value, I'll probably present it to one of the museums.
Well, that's as may be. All I know is if it were mine, I'd throw it straight back in the sea. I wish you good night, sir.
Good night. No education.
Poor Parkins found himself unable to sleep. He lay there thinking about the whistle. He thought about the strange wind that had arisen when he had blown into it. He imagined the mysterious figure waving from his bedroom window. What could it all mean?
Huh?
There had been a movement, he was sure, in the empty bed. Tomorrow he must have it moved, for there must be rats or something playing about in it. Or was he imagining it?
Ah!
No, there it was again. A loud rustling, surely more than any rat could cause. Imagine how dreadful it was for him to see a figure slowly sit up in what he had known was an empty bed. He moved to the window with a half-formed idea that he should cry for help, but his voice had died in his throat. He could not utter a sound. And the presence in the empty bed, with a sudden, smooth motion, moved towards him. All at once, Parkins realized, with some horror and some relief, that it must be blind, for it seemed to feel about with its muffled arms in a groping and random fashion. Then it suddenly became conscious of the bed Parkins had just vacated and darted towards it, bending over the pillows in a way which made Parkins shudder, with fear he had not thought possible. In a very few moments, it seemed to know that the bed was empty, and then, moving forward into an area of light by the window, it showed for the first time what manner of thing it was.
Oh my God! The face! Ah! Oh.
My God, Parkins! Parkins! Parkins!
To his credit, Reynolds asked no questions, but busied himself keeping everyone from the room and in getting Parkins back to his bed. And at first light, he left the hotel carrying a small object between finger and thumb, which he cast as far into the sea as his arm could send it. There is really nothing more to tell, but as you may imagine, the professor's views on certain points are less clear-cut than they used to be. His nerves too have suffered. He cannot even now see a nightshirt hanging on a door quite unmoved, while the spectacle of a scarecrow in a field late on a winter afternoon has cost him more than one sleepless night. And here we come to the end of our evening of ghost stories, especially chosen for Christmas. We hope that you've enjoyed them, and remember, don't have nightmares.